From censored files to clear evidence, this is Redacted Realms.
7 Accusations Letter. Surely you here are no longer unfamiliar with the name Phan Chau Trinh, right? He was a revolutionary who made great contributions to the cause of national liberation and country development. But did you know that Phan Chau Trinh once sent an indictment to King Khai Dinh, accusing the crimes of this very king? So what exactly happened? Let's explore on PhD right now. Although a grand scholar, trained in a Confucian environment, Phan Chau Trinh, born in 1872 and died in 1946, early recognized the backwardness of the absolute monarchy and the superiority of the democratic republic system. Therefore, he strongly condemned the corrupt feudal regime and the brutal kings and mandarins. 7 Accusations. That year, King Khai Dinh went to France to attend the colonial exhibition in Marseille. This was the first time a Nguyen dynasty king went abroad. This nearly 3-month-long and costly trip sparked many protest activities by patriotic Vietnamese. Phan Chau Trinh sent a long letter in Chinese listing 7 capital crimes of the king, including worshipping royal power, unfair rewards and punishments, favoring kneeling and prostration, a moral luxury, improper attire, excessive travel, and going to France for shady work. Phan Chau Trinh also translated the letter into Vietnamese script and had it translated into French for publication. The work was 28 A4 pages long, including an introduction stating the reasons and purposes for writing the main part listing the 7 crimes of King Khai Dinh, the conclusion summarizing the main content, and an appendix noting the writing method, forms of address, and punctuation. This attempt to consolidate the throne was against world trends and the people. Therefore, if he voluntarily abdicated and returned power to the people would forgive him. Otherwise, Trinh would have to publicly denounce him to the people, cooperate with France for the 20 million compatriots, and fiercely declare war with Her Majesty, wishing that Trinh's head, along with Her Majesty's barbaric absolute power, would simultaneously fall to the ground. Phan Chau Trinh quoted numerous sayings of Confucius, Mencius, and realities in European Asian history, to affirm that the king must follow the people's will, do things beneficial to the people and country, and if not, would be punished like everyone else. The author pointed out the reasons why our country was invaded by France and increasingly weakened. The Nguyen ancestors, in 200 years of expanding nearly half of the south, had such great merits, but their descendants as kings lost the country in just over 50 years, truly pitiful. The failure in education caused academic degradation, only known to pass exams to become officials to exploit the people, without them. Therefore, until now, the state has increasingly weakened, no longer standing in any ranks. Based on past events to judge crimes, if not the king then who, even with eloquent lawyers, could not defend. The author also pointed out Khai Dinh's corruption, condemning him fiercely. Now Her Majesty, before becoming king, was not known for any good deeds, while the wickedness was already clear to everyone, only concerned with running around to become king. After becoming king, only did things that made people resentful. Yet now still relies on power, forcing people to worship him. According to ancient and modern laws, European and Asian people would judge their kings and sentence Her Majesty. Either execution or expulsion, Your Majesty cannot avoid. After explaining why rewards and punishments must be fair, the author pointed out Khai Dinh's unjust, deceitful, and shady actions. People were immediately dismissed and sent. There was also a minister who often sold Her Majesty's personal belongings outside. On that occasion, having lost support, His Majesty found a pretext to impose, sentencing him to 8 years in prison. The case is already later, it was heard that he had to bribe 50,000 silver coins to be released and keep his position, as he was corrupt. Thus, His Majesty's rewards and punishments are based solely on personal whim, not following the law, only fostering deceit through bribery. So, what does the king do? It is said that His Majesty keeps over 40 secret agents by his side, to spy day and night across villages and cities, watching for anyone criticizing him. If there is, His Majesty either finds a way to accuse them immediately, or uses secret means to harm them without anyone knowing. Those people are called spies, relying on their proximity to the king to commit many unlawful acts, making honest citizens all fearful, forced to seal their lips and cover their mouths. Meeting on the streets, they only dare to glance at each other. Truly, this causes the people immense suffering. The author concluded as follows. King Li of the Zhou dynasty had many flaws. Fearing public criticism, he enacted laws to cover the truth. Just like your Majesty. Duke Shao Kan said, silencing the people is harder than damming a river. King Li did not listen, and was eventually killed by the people. Why doesn't your Majesty take that as a lesson? The author believes that one person sitting high above, with many below forced to wear robes and bow their heads to the ground, not only degrades human dignity, but also makes those above arrogant, and those below lose their sense of shame. It is truly a very backward ritual. The author strongly criticizes and condemns King Khai Din's preference for formal kneeling and pointing out its negative consequences. That ritual is not a civilized one. The king is not heaven. Officials and people are not slaves. Train stations and ports are not the court. So how dare your Majesty force people to prostrate in the mud? Treating humans like animals. Making foreigners see it. Not only mocking your Majesty. Such things, anyone with a bit of intelligence, known a little about modern civilization, would not do. Yet your Majesty happily and proudly does it. Truly excessive. So what else is that but foolishness? And the author posed a very tricky question to King Khai Din. So, doesn't your Majesty know what shame is? Your Majesty cares nothing for your own reputation. What about the face of Vietnam? 4. The crime of boundless humiliation. The author argues that Khai Din's refusal to use the old palaces of previous kings, and instead building the new grandiose, massive and coup, along with manufacturing hats, clothes, and shoes was wasteful and useless at immediately constructing a Dai Na palace office in Ku village, buying porcelain from China, each time costing thousands of silk, bringing them back to Sash, selecting pieces that beautiful and shiny, to attach dragon images, Kylin, Phoenix to satisfy His Majesty's luxury, also hiring Westerners to cast 3 to 4 bronze statues of himself. Costly, each statue priced around 10,000 silver coins, to display in the exhibition house. From scarves, hats, to clothes, shoes. His Majesty inlaid gold, jade, diamond, costing an incalculable amount, even using thin gold leaf, making boots to cover the entire calves. Truly foolish luxury. From ancient times until now, never heard of any king doing such things. The author strongly criticizes the wasteful spending, indiscriminate gifting and bestowing by King Khai Din while in France, again when His Majesty went to the west, from boarding the ship at Florin until arriving in France. On the ship, meeting any pedestrian, all treated to top-grade champagne freely. Just the tip money alone amounted to 20,000 coins. And gold coins, gold medals that gave to whoever met. Countless. The author questions. Who isn't familiar that before His Majesty became king, in his pocket not a single penny? So where did that money come from? If not His Majesty stealing from the treasury, secret funds of our country, then where would the money come from? The author argues that, if King Khai Din used the aforementioned wasteful money to build a university, purchase equipment for the school, support students studying abroad in France, then comparing the two ways of using which side is beneficial and which side is harmful, His Majesty should consider for himself. The author is particularly out when the people have to eat hunger, wear rags, have to bend their backs to pay all kinds of taxes, for the king to have money to spend wastefully. Yet, when collecting taxes, squeezing every coin. When spending, treating it as giving away for free. So what crimes have the enemy's people committed? that they must endure hundreds of sufferings, taking the coins earned by their sweat and tears, to offer to a king who spends so foolishly and wastefully. The author summarized the fourth crime of Khai Dinh as follows. Your Majesty wrote to the Minister of Colonies, calling yourself the father and mother of the people. Yet I ask, since ancient times our country has valued family ethics, but where is there any parent so cruel and inhuman? More accurately, they should be called the enemy of the people. 5. The crime of improper service. First, the author criticizes the peculiar way of dressing, not following any regulations of King Khai Dinh. Your Majesty arbitrarily created a new type of ceremonial attire, worn by yourself to show off, based on the old brocade robe. Adding European-style epaulets, with collars and sleeves adorned with gaudy gold and jade, neither European nor Asian in style. And on the king's hat, there were also glittering dragon and phoenix figures. If it is said that the old way of dressing is not suitable for this era, and reform is needed to keep up with the times, that is not something that should not be done. Look at Japan and China. Their court attire follows European styles. But a unified system from top to bottom must be established, changing in a new direction, issuing regulations for everyone to follow. Then what is wrong with that? Finally, the author points out the harm of King Khai Dinh's eccentric dressing, and considers it a crime. Yet Your Majesty does the opposite, creating and wearing it yourself, only caring to make yourself look noble. People in the country see no standard in it. And it also causes outsiders to misunderstand, both violating diplomatic etiquette and disgracing the nation. According to our country's laws, you must be punished. That is the fifth crime. The author criticizes King Khai Dinh's haphazard travels, wasting, and the efforts of many people, causing hardship and suffering for the public, neglecting state and people's effect. After Your Majesty ascended the throne, you vigorously expanded her royal procession, frequently going on pleasure trips, with porters and palanquins, with carriages and horses. The attendants, many up to hundreds, at least 30 or 40. In the evening, roaming around in the city, with splendid decorations, majestic ceremonies, arrogant attendants, our country has not seen in 40 years. Passers-by suffer from having to avoid them. Household residents are annoyed by the disturbance, while Your Majesty is self-satisfied and proud, intending to show that the emperor is luxurious. The author points out the wrongs of the king's pleasure trips and convicts him. Considering the laws of civilized countries, there is no right that does not come with obligations. Your Majesty has lowered your own authority, arbitrarily displaying power and granting favors, paying no attention to, nor caring about the people's hunger and cold, but only indulging in daily pleasures, arrogant and unrestrained. Then how can you blame your subjects? Your Majesty is too noble. But what about the suffering nation? Thus you only know your rights, but do not know your responsibilities. According to the law, if duties are not fulfilled, you must bear responsibility. The crime of harming the country and the people. Your Majesty must be the one primarily responsible. The crime of going to France for shady dealings. First, the author presents three different purposes. But King Khai Dinh's trip to France, then criticizes and refutes all three. Sending the prince to study abroad, visiting our country's soldiers who sacrificed, visiting the devastated northern cities of France. The author believes those are all Your Majesty's personal matters, not public affairs of our nation, and they are completely unnecessary things. Traveling to France to study their civilization, then returning to reform domestic politics. The author believes Your Majesty is not the person capable of doing that. Why is that? Because France is a democratic country, while Your Majesty is a king who worships monarchy. Moreover, Your Majesty is not proficient in, and the accompanying officials, like Mr. X, are all inferior people from our country. Their intellect is even inferior to a 10-year-old child in France. Furthermore, while Your Majesty was at the top, you only went to the horse racing track once, won 200 coins. There are large museums, large schools, large commercials, large architectural, and places concentrating the essence of French civilization that you never set foot in, claiming to go for research. Yet is this how research is done? Attending the colonial exhibition in Marseille, the author believes that, in this court, under Your Majesty's autocratic regime, the scholars are as dark as ink. The peasants are as emaciated as dry. There is nothing skillful about it. Only Your Majesty's high-ranking officials and mandarin possess the skill in deception, the skill in flattery, the skill in accepting bribes, the skill in exploiting the people to enrich themselves. But unfortunately, those kneeling figures, in this country of France, 60 to 70 years ago they were already discarded, into the abyss, thrown into the red flames. Now Your Majesty brings such people here. There is no one left to struggle against. Next, the author mentions public opinion that King Khai Dinh, relying on autocratic power, plundered the people's wealth, purchased top-grade luxury goods from East Asian countries and domestically, collected all types of badges from previous dynasties, stored them in over 100 chests, now bringing all of it along. Relying on French named it in high Colonial, organizing ceremonies for the French monarch to seek consolidation of the royal throne for Your Majesty and your father, and relying on them as backup to achieve the dream of strengthening monarchical power. After success, Your Majesty will return to the country and silence the nation, then enact various laws to suppress. Although this matter remains secret, people are already spreading rumors outside, not without basis. According to a French proverb, "As smoke, there." The author affirms this intention of King Khai Dinh is this, and will certainly fail because Your Majesty wants to maintain the monarchy, yet seeks help from the people of a democratic country. I already know that bribery cannot possibly succeed. Your Majesty's ailment stems from ignorance, never having read about France's democratic revolution history. If anyone were to realize this, they would bow their heads and just pack up and return early. Next, the author presents the process of the collapse of the autocratic feudal institution and the victory of liberal democracy in France, Europe, and throughout the world, and affirms that sacred and inviolable doctrine of people's rights, which is flourishing and radiant like the midday sun, shining throughout the sky, so that later the monarchical system will certainly have no place to stand, let alone barbaric autocracy. Concluding the section on the seventh crime, the author continues the attack of awful action and condemns Emperor Khai, consider the hundreds of chests of precious items belonging to Your Majesty or yet dared to tarnish the white jade, to blacken the yellow gold, going against the trend, the world contrary to humanitarian justice, soiling the honor of the nation, in order to preserve for Your Majesty the fate of the monarchical system above, which is already fading like morning dew. Saying that the resentment of 20 million citizens is a small matter, what face is left to face the nations of the world? Thus, Your Majesty's trip this time is certainly a failure, without any doubt. It is only regrettable how much blood and sweat of our 6 to 7 million citizens, how many precious national treasures, accumulated over hundreds of years, are all discarded by Your Majesty for trivial whims. Sinking completely beneath the waves of the Western Ocean. K2 in the notes by Phan Chau Trinh also states, this letter was written in one copy in Chinese script sent to Your Majesty, then translated into French and published in French newspapers and distributed to broaden French public opinion. And, between me and Your Majesty, all relations have been severed. Only standing in a position of opposition, but not Your Majesty. That is all in Chinese script, conventionally used for convenience, not out of respect. Thus, in name it is a letter, but in essence it is an indictment, a verdict against the Nguyen dynasty monarchical system and Khai Dinh himself. Evaluating this work, the An Minh Hue publishing house writes, in an era when monarchy was still prevalent, with colonial powers backing it, yet Mr. Tay-Ho resolutely sent this letter directly to Emperor Khai Dinh in Paris, while the dim-witted king went to visit the Marseille Exposition of 1922. Severely criticizing, listing 7 crimes that made the king tremble with fear and stick out his tongue, and as for Fat Boy Chow, he believed the 7-point letter's interception of the emperor like what, examining his authority, neither startled nor frightened. After this letter was published, it inspired the fighting spirit of the people, both inside and outside. Later generations still regard the 7-point letter as a unique letter in history. That 7-point letter was powerful, fiercely criticizing emperor, criticizing the outdated autocratic, the culprit causing disaster for the country, making the country backward, the people poor, hungry, miserable. What do you think about this letter? Please share your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you for watching the video. And do not miss out on interesting upcoming content. Don't forget to subscribe to the Redacted Realms team. Goodbye and see you again.
If this file opened your eyes, subscribe and open the next case.